Sometimes we can get a little bored of our daily routines. I have discovered, though, these feelings can be a dangerous little game to play. Because this is when the powers that be will remind you just how lucky you are to have a daily routine that doesn't involve murder, death, or an unexplainable feeling of dread. Enjoy. My uncle died alone and was kind of an outsider, a black sheep of the family. My dad and I went to his farmhouse in Oklahoma to inventory his stuff and begin clearing it out to sell the place. We go out to the barn and open it up. 5 paces in, a pitchfork flies out of nowhere and sticks into the wall next to my dad, barely missing him. I immediately look for a place where the thing could have been resting that would have made it fall when we opened the barn, or some sort of mechanism that would have flung it at us. I find nothing. Then I think maybe someone was in the barn. We startled them and they chucked it at us. Again, we find no one. Then I notice that my father is eerily calm and quiet, seemingly not even interested in figuring out what just happened, but he's white as a sheet. I thought maybe he was having a heart attack, so I asked him if he's all right. Bear in mind, he's a scientist. He believes in nothing supernatural. But he proceeds to tell me that there is a family secret that I don't know, involving the barn, my uncle, and a pitchfork, and that I must never bring the matter up again. When I was 14, I was sleeping over at my friend Dave's house. His grandma was there watching us because his parents were out of the country. When it was time to go to bed, his grandma gave us both a hug goodnight. But when she hugged me, she grabbed my ass and slipped her tongue into my ear. Creeped me out so bad I don't think I slept all night, and I never slept at Dave's house again. Fucking creepy. One night as we were watching TV, our dogs start to bark, going crazy at the door. Much more so than he ever does, which is maybe once every couple months. But he was really different about it this time. Fast forward 2 weeks, cops are combing through the small forest that is behind our backyard fence. Turns out a woman was raped and brutally murdered there. A friend of mine related this story to me. He and his wife decided to take their 3 young kids to Mexico on vacation. Now they're the type that want to see the real Mexico, not the tourist towns. They talked to some people they knew from the area they were interested in, and were told it's a great idea. Just don't drive from city to city at night. So they drove down and heeded the advice to only travel between cities during the day for a couple of weeks. One day they realized that the city they want to see next is going to involve an overnight drive, unless they take a flight and rent another car. They decide that nothing bad has happened so far and just go for it. It's well after sunset, and the road that they're on has gone into a canyon, and the canyon is getting really twisty, the road really narrow. They come up around a sharp turn in the road and see a massive boulder in the center of the road. With some amazing luck, he manages to avoid crashing into this thing and goes flying around the other side of the rock. That's when they saw about 20 people standing there looking at them, all with various farm implements and weapons at the ready. They also notice a car that obviously didn't avoid the boulder on the road, and the bodies on the ground next to it. This next story is from a guy's point of view. In 2004, there was a girl I really liked. One night, I summoned up the courage to ask her on a date. We went to a restaurant, drank some wine, and at around 11 we decided to go to a beach called Makapuu, which is near Honolulu. It was really dark, and there was hardly anyone out. We talked about each other's lives and experiences, and we laid down and listened to the ocean for a few hours. At about 2 a.m., strange things started happening. Me and the girl I was with felt our hands being touched by something small. We thought it was miniature crabs, but when we looked, nothing was there. The moon was full at night, so you could see a lot of stuff, but we saw no crabs. Then the weirdest sound was heard by both of us. It sounded like a baby crying. Keep in mind it was 2 a.m. and no one was around. The nearest house was 5 miles away. We kept on hearing the crying. We both thought that it was a cat crying or something, but when we looked in the direction of the crying, there was no cat to be found. We kept on feeling our hands being touched. We both had had enough and decided to leave, and I just put it in the back of my mind, thinking that it was crabs or a cat. 2 months later, I'm sitting with my hairstylist who was a local, and we began talking about strange things that happen on the island. We were talking about night marchers and haunted burial grounds. Then she started talking about Makapuu. I asked what was so scary about that place. She said that a long time ago, Hawaiians used to take the deformed babies and kill them at Makapuu. She told me some people say that if you stay there long enough, you'll hear them crying. Every hair on my body stood up. Allegheny National Park is a park on the border of New York and Pennsylvania. The road is Wolf Run Road. On the park maps, it shows up as Dead End Road. One night after it had rained, my family and I were riding in our van when we stopped on this road so my dad could collect some frogs. As he was standing at the side of the van putting the frogs into a container, there was a very loud, deep-throated growl from behind him. He spun around and had me shine the flashlight in the direction of the growl. There was nothing there. At the side of the road, there's about 10 feet of grass before the ground rises so steeply it nearly forms a cliff face. After hearing the growl, my dad ran into the van and we hauled ass out of there. Another time, on the same road, I was walking on my own side of the road while my sister and a friend were on the other. On the side of the road they were on, there's some logging roads that run a short way into the woods. I noticed they had stopped and were just standing there looking at something. When I walked over, thinking they had seen an animal or something, I see a large, black, human shape down the road, just standing there. The shape was completely black, like it was standing in a shadow, except it wasn't. The part of the road it was on was in broad daylight. I ended up seeing the exact same shadowy figure a few years later, on the same road, after hearing very loud crashing noises as it walked through well-lit woods. When I was about 9, my parents had our house fumigated for termites. Since we had to stay out for a few days, we got some clothes and rented a room in a motel on the edge of town. It was a 2-bed room, and my brother and I had one bed. My parents had another. It was summer, so our parents would just drop us off at our friend's house during the day, pick us up at night, and then we'd sleep in the motel. So the first night, right before I fell asleep, the bed shook a few times. I thought it was my brother, so I kick him and tell him to knock it off. It happens a few more times, and I keep telling my brother to knock it off. He keeps saying that it wasn't him. Next day, parents drop us off to play, come back, same thing. Every 30 minutes or so that night, the bed shook. The next morning, I complained to my dad about the bed shaking, and to prove to me that there wasn't any monsters or anything, he lifts the mattress up off the box spring, and there was a lady tied up with multiple stab wounds. According to the coroner, she had died that night. Have you ever heard something you can't explain? Saw something you know you saw and no one believes you? Or worse, saw something that you can never forget, no matter how much time goes by? Let me know by contacting me through any of my social media links, or leave a comment here. See you next time.